you guys just announced the first expansion for Age of Conan, Rise of the Godslayer. Let's just start out with who's the Godslayer?
Well, it's a bit of a double entendre, but let's just say for now, Conan is the Godslayer. We'll stick with Conan as the Godslayer for now.
So how many gods has Conan actually been slaying?
Well, he killed Yag-Kosha in the Tower of the Elephant story, and Yag-Kosha was a god to the people of Kitai, even though he wasn't technically a god, I guess.
How does that background affect the expansion pack itself?
Well, it defines the entire storyline for the expansion pack. Yag-Kosha was protecting the people of Kitai from a certain darkness, and when Conan killed him, all of the magic that Yag-Kosha had done came undone. So there's a corruption spreading through the Empire of Kitai because of a consequence of what Conan did 25 years ago. So it's a large part of the storyline that the player follows. So.
All right, tell us a bit about Kitai. What can the player expect when they reach the new lands?
Okay. Well, Kitai is it's a very different feeling to the Roman-styled Aqualonia or the Celtic-styled Samaria, for example. But Kitai is very Asian-themed, of course. Very vast landscapes, lots of different terrain types. For example, the first playfield is the gateway to Kitai. It's a steppe land, very much a cold desert. And then you go through the northern grasslands, which are a lush grassland area full of horses and roaming herds of horses, horse-riding bandits and Hyrcanians, of course, invading Mongols. And then in the north you have the desert of black sand, which is called Karakoram, and that's a very strange place. And the crater, which is in the far north, which is a very large part of the story as well. And then you go through Chosin province, which is more beautiful. It's featured a lot in the trailer with the red forests and the gentle landscape. But there's a war going on there, so it's a very beautiful land that's been torn apart by war. And then you finally go into Paikang, which is the jungles that surround the capital city of the empire. And that's a coastline full of there's a coastline there, and it's a much darker place again. So.
During the presentation that we just saw, it was mentioned that the first area that the player comes to, it's between levels 20 to 40. Yes. The level cap is obviously higher in Age of Conan. Aren't you afraid that you'll be replacing the old content with the new? That players won't be as interested in going to old Aqualonia or Samaria anymore? Well,
I mean, of course, like we're adding a new character race, the Khitan race. And if you play through Tortage, you get sent to your homeland afterwards. So this is a natural consequence that the Khitan people need to get sent to their homeland after they finish Tortage. So we have a 20 to 40 area to introduce them to their own culture, to teach them about their people. I don't think it will negate any of the other content. It just gives people more options when they're in 20 to 40 range. And especially the fact that we didn't increase the level cap in the rest of the game means that we actually haven't negated any of the level 80 content that's already there. So it means that people actually have a lot more options to play with in the game. There was there's been a lot of feedback since the launch of the game that there isn't enough endgame. So with the expansion, we're actually providing a lot more endgame for the players as well. And that's what we focused on, actually. As somebody in the press put it yesterday, we're expanding the game horizontally rather than expanding it vertically, because I think that's what players need. And we took a decision as a company that that's the best thing for players.
But there are still ways to progress your character.
Absolutely. I mean, you'll encounter monsters in Kitai that have abilities that you cannot overcome without having trained in the alternative advancement system. So there are definitely... you still need to progress, to put it that way. It's just that in this way, nothing becomes trivial. So.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that, because EverQuest 2 has an alternate advancement point system and that keeps player, even at the level cap, busy for a long time. But isn't it really just the same way as adding more levels? Especially since, as you say, there are certain monsters that you can't beat without the...
Well, it depends on how you focus the content, I guess, that's the important decision that we make there. So if we choose to add in the alternate advancements a system that you're required to have it to be able to defeat certain monsters, but only in the expansion areas, that still doesn't make Zibaluku or any of the other level 80 content less of a challenge, because those monsters don't have that ability, so you don't need that counter to be able to beat them. But they're still level 80 monsters, it's still a challenge, and it's still interesting. So I guess that's where it is easy enough to balance, as long as we're careful with our content. So.
Okay, so compared to when you actually launched, this is the biggest thing, of course, for any MMO. The first expansion is almost as big as launch. And how careful are you now to not hype the product too much? Because that's one of the things that Funcom has gotten a lot of criticism for hyping stuff that wasn't in the game when it launched, like the very late DX10 support, for example.
What we're trying to do is make sure that people understand that the features that are there will be solid. I mean, we have a faction system in place. It's working. It's being tested, balanced, worked on continually. I think that at launch we didn't have the time to do a lot of the balance work that we needed to do. I would say that now we actually are definitely lessons learned, and I'd say that and Craig is actually the game director is very, very good at pushing us to make sure that we don't overreach, because developers tend to think that they can do more than they can. So Craig's very good at pushing us to make sure that we keep to our limits and we do what will be a good product for the players at the end of the day. So,
but thank you very much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
Look forward to it.
Cheers.